Um, so the timetable for this afternoon is going to have a half-an-hour session on using the safe, and then on next steps for using ARCHER2. I suspect we won't need that long, which will be good. We can get a little bit back closer to the schedule as written here, as we've overrun. That's certainly my fault. Apologies for that. Yeah, particularly the next steps, I think, will not take too long. So we'll be closer to the timetable we should be following, hopefully, after these sessions. So to get going, so first session on using the safe, probably you will know some of this already. After all, you've got your accounts set up, but it might give you more of an insight into the other uses for the safe. So the safe you've all gone through to create your accounts at least. So web-based tool, of course, it's run and developed by us at EPCC. It allows you to create, manage your ARCHER2 accounts, lets you record your research outputs linked to the use of ARCHER2. We'll mention why that's actually quite important in a minute. Lets you look at your historical use of the ARCHER2 service. So this is quite handy if you need to say, look at your research uses. It does give you, if you want it, a job level breakdown of your research, of your resource usage on ARCHER2. And if you are a project leader, or if you've been made a project manager by a project leader, then you can also manage your project resources on ARCHER2. By that I mean create sub-projects, move people into those projects, work out who has what access to which resources. And although this is mentioning ARCHER2 over and over again here, the safe is actually used for essentially all of the services provided at EPCC. So that includes Cirrus, which is a tier 2 HPC service that some of you may have used previously, as well as other accounts are managed to some, other machines also managed to some level through the safe, including those ones not at Edinburgh. DIRAC also uses the safe. I think a few other sites in Europe also possibly have brought safe to use. And of course, we also run the service desk as well through the safe. So just to be clear, because sometimes this does cause some confusion, particularly if you are trying to sort things out on a sort of management level, I'll say, and particularly again for people involved in the management of projects, it can sometimes be a little confusing which accounts we're talking about. So what's important is to remember that when you are working with ARCHER2, you will have a minimum of 2 accounts associated with that usage. You'll have one account on the safe and at least one ARCHER2 login, or sometimes called machine accounts. I say one account on the safe. Sometimes people do end up with multiple accounts. Generally, when you create when you create a safe account at your current institution, and perhaps you then move to a different institution, and through whatever pathway you end up following, you create a second safe account. That can cause issues sometimes. But if you think that has been the case, you can, as always, for basically anything, and whenever anything goes wrong, you can email into the service desk and we can sort that out. So if that ever does happen, yeah, just say, I've got 2 safe accounts under this email address, and that email address, could they please be merged, and we can help get that done. when we're talking about multiple ARCHER2 login accounts or machine accounts, you can end up with a whole load for various reasons. You might be involved with different research projects. Maybe you've taken the ARCHER2 driving test. Perhaps you've signed up for multiple training courses like this one. Whenever you do anything like that, you'll likely end up with a new ARCHER2 login account. So, for example, I mean, here I am. I've got my account here that I'm using, ULTA081, but I've got other ones for different courses I've helped to run March 2. I've got my own sort of main account, I'll call it, under one project. I've got another couple of accounts under other side projects I've been working on the side. So you can end up with potentially a large number of login accounts for ARCHER2, and as I say, any of the other systems which are also managed through the safe. But you can access all of them through the one safe account. So your safe account itself lets you manage those login accounts, the resources that you're using on those login accounts. So it's checking out their history of the resource usage. Sets your contact details, which can be important in case we need to contact you. Preferences for how we contact you, so for example, which mailing lists you want to be covered by. And that you record your research output, report your historical usage of the service. Two of the big things people like to do is to change their login, so that rather than use a specific safe account name, which would just be the password, and also your email address, you can use an institutional single sign-on to log in instead. And if you do that, then you just log in normally to begin with, and then you can go to the Your Details page. I wonder if I can quickly open the safe up here. Let's see. Yes, I can. So you just go to Your Details, and then register institutional ID. Oops. Yeah, register, and then register institutional ID. Hartree ID and ScotsGov identity. I think these are not really typically used by ARCHER2 users. And once that's been set up, then once you go to login, you can instead choose to log in with institutional credentials, and then you'll go through the single sign-on method. Rather than relying on your safe ID to log in, you can just use your university or research institute ID instead. You can also change your email notification preferences. I believe that the default by now is that everyone will be signed up to automatically the ARCHER2 machine mailing list. If that isn't the case at the moment, the plan is to make that the case. And the reason is that that mailing list is the one which is used to send out, in particular, emails to users whenever there's an issue with the system. For example, login nodes go down, the Slingshot network goes down, and anything which really impacts your ability to log in or to run jobs. And the reason for that change being made, or to be made in the future if it hasn't yet, is that if you aren't signed up to that mailing list, then there's a good chance you will miss out on hearing the news, essentially, if something does happen to ARCHER2. And really, we want people to know. Obviously, if something happens to the service, we want to make sure that the users are aware of it, so they don't try to log in and wonder, oh, I can't log in. Is this something I'm doing wrong? Is there something happening? It's much better if we can just make sure that we are actually able to email everyone. So yes, so that's the intention if it's not already the case. But there are various other mailing lists which you can sign up to. I think in particular the ones to be aware of are ones related to the project. So it's possible for people to send out project level emails, or for project managers to get emails on resource usage across the project. You can choose how you want to receive those or not. As for the multiple login accounts, so as I say, you can have lots of login accounts potentially associated with a single safe account. Again, I'll just show you, you can always get there, just mouse over login accounts and see what's there. You can always get access to new ones, through a request login account, assuming you've been invited to for whatever reason. Whenever you check a login account, so let me just check this one. So WLTA081. So this is my account for this training course, and here we can do things like we can check the disk usage. So we can see the usage on the home file system and the work file system. You can see that well, it's rounded it up to 1 gigabyte, but it's actually less than that. We could check if we wanted to check on with some of the Lustre commands. And we can also see the resources available to us. And well, we can see that there are 17.9 CUs available for this project. So any one of us who have accounts under this project can carry on running jobs as long as that 17.9 does not go negative. You can also, of course, pick up your initial login passwords. You can always do this, clicking this button here, view login account password, as well as resetting it. Something to note, yes, at this point here, Safe is not kept up to date with your actual password. So, of course, when you log in the first time on an account, or after you've reset the login password, you'll be asked to change it to a new password of your choice. When you do that, the password given in the safe is not updated to your new password. So the idea is that you and only you know what the password is. What that means is that you shouldn't rely on the safe to get back your password if you forget it. You can use, say, a password manager if you like. That's what I do. I'd recommend doing that. I think it's a great way of making sure that you always have a different password on everything that you use. Yeah, do not rely on the safe for that functionality, because it doesn't have that functionality. If you forget your password to log in to ARCHER2, you'll need to come here and you'll need to reset it, request password reset, and then start again as you would have done from the beginning. And of course, you can, alongside passwords, you can add SSH keys. Add credential button, you can remove SSH keys with delete credential. And you can request access to licensed software. So say, for example, you wanted to use some of the licensed and centrally installed software, by which I mean software available through the module system on ARCHER2. So if I just quickly do module avail, we'll see in a second. I do still have my connection, don't I? Yes. So here are some of the packages installed on ARCHER2 CSC service. So If you wanted to use, say, CASTEP or PyChemShell or VASP, for example, these are licensed software. They're installed. We've installed them for you to use, but you need to have a license to get access to use them. If you wanted to do that, you'd come here to the safe, onto your page, you'd click on request access to package, you would choose, FASP6, say, for example, and then you would provide some details on your license. That would then create a query in the system. You would go away and check. Sometimes we need to check with the software developers that we're able to give you access. And once we do that, we then add your account to the group, to the Unix group on ARCHER2, which then has read and execute permission on those executables, so you can then go away and use them. Generally, if you need to do that, if you take a look at the ARCHER2 documentation under the research software section, if the software you're looking at requires a license for you to use it, that will be noted. So you know that you can do this. You can come onto the safe and go through this request access to package route to get that software added to your account. Yes, so, I mentioned recording research outputs and why it's actually fairly important. The reason is ARCHER2 is essentially bought and paid for by the UK government via UKRI, and for systems for services like this to be considered viable, it's important. I mean, I'm sure you know this. It's important that we make it known that you, the scientists, are actually using the system to produce good, solid research that is being published in journals, in reputable journals, at conferences, at whatever. So whenever you produce a research output, you can add this to the safe, and this goes into the reporting back to UKRI, and really it helps to make the case to UKRI that that the purchase of the ARCHER2 service and funding to run it is worthwhile, that it's helped you do the science you need to do. So if you can fairly quickly, it's a fairly simple process, go through this process here of adding your outputs to your account, then that helps us track them and helps us report to UKRI and the UK government that this was money well spent, which of course then hopefully means that in the future, we can carry on with whatever the successor to ARCHER2 is, which you will then also have access to carry on doing science. So really this is about sustaining access, I suppose, to a national HPC service. Finally, here, something else that is often useful for several reasons. There are a good few reasons why you might want to look back at the jobs you've run in the past and work out your usage on those jobs. So you can actually do this while logged into ARCHER2 itself. You can use some slurm commands to get your usage up. But this is probably a little simpler to do. You can go onto the service information reports menu item, just like this. And then you've got really a whole lot of options here. you might want to look up, say, project jobs. If you're a project manager, you can get up the project report as a whole. These let you do things like look up basically tables of jobs that you've run. So you can ask it to give you all of the jobs that you have run on a given account in a given project over some period of time. It will bring those up in a table on the web page. You can then export that to CSV files. If you then want to, say, import that into Excel or Python or something to do further processing. If you are a project manager, as I say, you can generate project reports, so you can do things like look at which users within a project have been using what resources or disk usage over time, given as histograms, to just give you some extra insight into what's been going on within the project on ARCHER2. So I think that kind of covers it here. So so that's really the sort of user-facing functionality of the safe. Of course, you can also, submit queries through here. But I think most people tend to email queries in rather than go through the safe to do it. Yeah, so I think that really covers the safe. There is safe documentation as well, which is linked to from the ARCHER2 documentation. So it's a separate piece of documentation that provides extra information on how to perform, I think in particular, the project manager type functions. As I say, I've really covered just on this section here most of the important things to know for people who really just want to get logged into ARCHER2 and get down to doing their work. If you are a project manager, there are a few more things to know. But yeah, these are linked to in the safe documentation from the ARCHER2 documentation. Okay, so that thankfully didn't take too long. We've got one more section now before the final section of the afternoon of the whole course, which is on next steps. So really, what can you do now if you want to take things further? So if you're experiencing any kind of difficulties, and again, this happens to everyone sooner or later, something unexpected will happen. Really, the first port of call will be the ARCHER2 service desk. And for the vast majority of users, that means emailing this address here. We have an SLA, a service level agreement in place with UKRI. So we have to get back to you. We aren't allowed to just ignore anything if it looks difficult. Don't worry, we will get back to you. We will help you. We will help you get problems sorted out. And I think we're actually pretty good at getting that done. So if you do have any issues, please do get in touch with us. Everyone who helps run it is friendly. I think I can say that fairly confidently as well. We're friendly, we're helpful. We like to help people get their problems fixed. We like to help you get going with the stuff that you want to get going with. You can also request a callback from the ARCHER2 CSC service, as mentioned just here. That means if you have something that you would rather talk about over, say, a Zoom or a Teams call, you can request that, and we're able to then set up that call and then have a chat with you. Sometimes that's easier, I think. Sometimes, explaining an issue over email can take quite a long time just to type it all out and get your thoughts in order. Sometimes it is easier to just have a chat with someone, and we're able to do that if that's what you would prefer. And depending on what the issue is, it might be something that we've seen before and are able to help with quickly and easily. If it does need to go in depth, we'll do that, and we'll do what it takes to get the issue solved for you. Of course, there's documentation, which has probably been mentioned over and over and over again the 2 days of this course, but it's fairly complete. I'll open it in a new tab. We've got a few sections, the quick start guides, which are, given you're all here on the developers course, probably slightly lower level than what you're looking for. But then we've got the user and best practice guide as well, which goes into much more detail on the programming environment, the using different versions of the programming environment, switching the communications layer for MPI, all of the more nitty-gritty detail, I guess. How to use the profiling and debugging tools is covered in this section. And then we've got the section as well on using the actual research software and software libraries available. I'll just quickly show. I'll close the safe now. So using, so here's the research and use and best practice guide just below the research software section. So if you want to know how to use, say, NWChem, we generally sort of show some example job scripts which we know run well on ARCHER2. And then generally we also link to how those pieces of software were compiled on ARCHER2. and then we also link to the safe documentation as well. For the training, of course, I suppose you found your way to this training, so you at least know that ARCHER2 training exists. So they will be so courses will be advertised in the regular ARCHER2 mailing list, and of course we also link to it on the ARCHER2 on the ARCHER2 website. To also be where you go to find the recordings for this session afterwards if you want to. Here's upcoming training. We can always see what's due to happen soonish. Over the past couple of years, almost 3 years now, isn't it? These have been online for, I guess, obvious reasons. We're now starting to shift to holding some training courses in person as well, and we're obliged to run those at various locations around the UK. So if there is anything you want to attend in person, there's a chance it will be somewhere close to you. And you can see these cover various topics. So we generally have, occasionally we have fairly advanced courses on using particular packages efficiently. So generally some piece of research software, something like VASP or CodeSetter, how to use those efficiently on ARCHER2. We also have the carpentry courses, just general how to look after your software, how to work with data efficiently and effectively. These are official carpentries courses as well. I did a couple of these back in the olden days before coming to EPCC and found them very helpful. So I think there are always little patches, little things where you think, I'm not so sure about that, little gaps in your knowledge. And I think these courses are great at just filling those in. And then maybe some things like, for example, we've got here, there's a course we run I think we run this twice every year or so, on using containers in HPC environments. So this is a fairly new topic. So we start out in this course teaching about how to use Docker. You've possibly heard of Docker or possibly used Docker. And then we move on from Docker to using Singularity, which is similar to Docker, similar type of technology, but it's specifically for use in a multi-user HPC environment, which Docker is not suited for. And we go over how to use this on ARCHER2. As far as getting access to ARCHER2, so some of you, possibly even all of you, are already ARCHER2 users. If you aren't, or if you're planning on getting access to ARCHER2, these are some of the routes you may want to consider. So the very easiest way of getting access is to go through the ARCHER2 driving test. So this is some material, some simple material, followed by a short online quiz that you take. And on passing that quiz, you get a small amount of time to use on ARCHER2. So an account, some small amount of resources. I should note that that's for UK-based researchers only. Unfortunately, we do have to limit that. Otherwise, I should also say that so it's called a driving test, and it functions through this quiz. It isn't at all intended to block people from getting access to ARCHER2. The quiz is not meant to, you know, hold up a stop sign in front of people and say, sorry, we're not giving you access. It's just there to make sure that, say, people who maybe haven't used HPC before are sufficiently aware of how to use the system. People who haven't used HPC before, for example, may not know what a batch system is at all. So this just provides, you know, say a simple introduction. This is what a batch system is. This is Slurm. This is how this is the basic use of Slurm. I suspect that possibly this is, again, sort of a little lower than the level that you're all aiming for here, but it may be that you possibly work with people, I don't know, you may work with people who would maybe find something like this very useful. It is only a small amount of time on ARCHER2, but that's enough time, you know, for you to get your code onto there, to make sure that you know how to build it and to run it, and probably enough time to run some scaling tests. And that's important because then with results from those scaling tests, you can build a case to apply for much more time on ARCHER2. You might be doing that through these other routes listed below. You might be going through a scientific consortium, one of the high-end computing consortia, which is often the simplest if you're working within their remits. They're listed on the access page. Kind of similar to the driving test, but to give you a little more time, you could go for the pump priming route. You may also apply for time via a research grant. That depends on the grant awarding body. So if you're applying for something through EPCC, then it's probably guaranteed you would be able somehow to get some time on ARCHER2 as part of that grant. And there are also every so often UKRI access to HPC calls, which you can see on the UKRI website. They give details of when those calls are closing, but they're fairly regular, and they give you large amounts of resources for up to a year. And you can find all the details on those on the access page. I'll quickly show that to you. Here we go. Yeah. So various methods are available. Generally, what you'll have to do for all of them, aside from the driving test, is you will have to complete a technical assessment. That's where you need to provide some details on the code you'll be using. Does it have any dependencies? How does it scale? That's where you maybe would go through the driving test first, say, to get some scaling information on ARCHER2. What's your data management plan and the like? And then on completion of that, you'd get a new project. You'd be project manager, and you and any others in your research group can get accounts on that project, and you can get to work. Another part of the ARCHER2 service is the EPCC program. So this is the embedded computational science and engineering program. This provides funding for groups of researchers who are looking to be able to pay essentially a research software engineer for them, or someone else in their research group, or maybe someone from somewhere else. You can ask for people from EPCC to take on this role, to take your software and to work on it. So if you do really need to take your code and have someone sit down for a long period of time, months to a year, this can provide the funding for that person to do that, to take on your code, to improve its performance, expand its functionality, to make it a more sustainable piece of software. This is how you can get the funding to do that. So I'm not going to go too much into detail here. So that's a fairly in-depth proposal you need to make. You need to provide a technical evaluation for that, as well as a project proposal itself to describe what you want to do with your code, why it's worthwhile doing, all the nitty-gritty detail. But if you or if people in your group might be interested, you may want to look into that. Finally, again, to help make the case for continued funding of the National Supercomputing Service, please use this phrase in the acknowledgements for papers and such that you produce, to make sure that that is made known, that the service was of help to you there. Okay, so grant numbers, I guess, should probably always be quoted. If it's specific, then yes. Okay, thanks. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think that really kind of brings us up to the end here. So I think so 15 minutes. So I think probably what we'll do here is we'll take a 10-minute break rather than 15 minutes, and then I think we're entirely on schedule, I think. Possibly even ahead of it, actually. I'm not sure. Okay, no, we're still a wee bit behind, but we're close enough. We've caught up a lot. Yeah, so we'll take a 10-minute break until 3 o'clock, and then we'll come back and we'll jump into this this bootstrapping session. As I say, if you have anything that you want to use this time to work on while James and I are here and able to help, please do. If you have any general questions about using ARCHER2, developing on the system, running jobs on the system, please, this is your chance to ask us while we're here. Otherwise, you can go ahead and try out this this suggested mini project of trying to work out a good a good resource choice for running this GROMACS simulation. Or otherwise, if you have other things to get to, I wouldn't blame you at all if you wanted to call it a day on the course and head off. Other than that, though, I'll let you at least get away for 10 minutes before we come back at 3 o'clock and start this more open-ended session. Okay, I'll see you in, see you at 3 o'clock. Okay, hi everyone, it's 3 o'clock. So we'll start once more on the final rather open-ended session of the day. Let me just start sharing again. Yes, so this session is kind of up to you in a way. If you, as I say, if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask now, anything they've thought of over today or Friday, any questions about the software we've seen or anything else, or any problems they've encountered that they'd like to talk about, please go ahead, or otherwise have a go at this problem of GROMACS down below, or if you have somewhere else to be, completely understand if you might want to get there. But yeah, as I say, otherwise, we've actually reached the end of the taught material for the course. We have been recording, so if you want to go back and watch this again, it will be available soon, I think, on the website via a YouTube link. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Very welcome. I hope it's been handy. Yeah, and if anything, if you do have any questions, yeah, just send in something to the service desk, and we'll be happy to help.
Right, will do. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Finish your recovery quickly.
Me too. It's taken a lot longer than I was expecting it to. It's not been fun, but there we go. There we go. Thanks.
Yes, yeah, I found it had a long tail for me as well.
Yeah, I hadn't caught it until now. So I think I got a bit of hubris. I was wondering, oh, perhaps I'm just completely immune to it, but no, that was not the case. And yeah,
unfortunately so. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again. Thanks again.
Okay, you're very welcome. Bye now. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Andre. Hope you found it useful.